The data element that I need off of this report has been found, and it is called this DB repair key. Just like with the travelers, we need to have a specific database label on our report that is actually letting us know which event it is, and it's that event that ends up connecting to the images. So I went ahead and I found it on this report. It's DB repair key. If you do not have images in your reports already, all you need to do is take any one of the database fields that there are, right click it, copy paste, as you know, that'll make a copy of that database element, that database text. You'd come to the data field, you would change it to being unique key, and you would also have to change it, so you'd change the data field to unique key. You'd also have to change its name to DB repair key. And that element needs to appear in the list, in the list over here on the right in the tree, before the image components, which also makes sense because you need to be able to connect to the repair before you're going to print the images. So I'll go ahead and I will click on the DB repair key. I will hold down my shift key. I'll click on the image 1 and the image 2. So I'll take all those, edit, copy. I'll come down to the report that we've been creating. And on page 1, I want to say edit, paste. So I'll go ahead and I'll drop those onto my report. So I've got my DB repair key right there, and it's off of the report page, so it's not going to show up on anything. If I come into my tree and I find what I've just dropped, they always end up getting pasted to the bottom. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move this guy all the way up to the top in the creation order. So I'll come to my alignment tab, I'll hit the top, I moved it up, and now as we previously spoke, the data cycle actually has to be the first one in the element. And you notice now that my data cycle is no longer, because I moved this repair key, DB repair key, to the top. So I'm going to just repeat the process with the data cycle, putting everything in the proper order again. So the last thing I need to do now is I need to move and size my images. Pretty good fit actually, given that they came off of a different report. So I'm going to more or less expand this box a little bit, and I'm going to consume a little bit of the real estate that is available for the image to make them a little bit nicer in size. So I'll go ahead and I'll stretch this stuff all out a little bit. Again, I'm going to zoom in now and make it a little bit easier on myself here. I could have used the align. Actually, I'm going to use the align, so I'll click both of them. I'm going to come to my alignment tab, and I'm going to align the left, and I'm going to also align the top. So now those are perfectly aligned, throwing it out of alignment there. So what I'll do is I'll actually move them a little bit like that. I will say this one here and this one here. I want to align left, and I want to align their bottoms. Bottom alignment, bottom. There it is. Align their bottoms. All right. Scroll over a little bit more. Actually, that was pretty much all right as it was anyway. So now I'm going to stretch the images out a little bit and consume the real estate space that I have on the report. So I'm going to align those two on the tops. I'm also going to equate their height, and now we've got the same sized images, and that looks pretty good, right? So I'm going to go ahead, I'll click zoom, I'll zoom out a little bit here, and now we've achieved what we wanted. We've achieved what was originally hand sketched on the existing report. We have the description area, we have the comment area, and we have two images. We've got everything set up properly with our data cycle, right? We have to have the data cycle as the very first element on page 1. I made a copy of the report, and I gave it the proper naming here. So the valve data you notice in the tree of all the reports, you notice that the names are pretty consistent, and that is the name property, not the full name property. The full name property is what appears in our list box of reports. So now let's go ahead and let's close out of the report editor, and it will come up and it will ask me here in a second whether or not I want to save. Of course I do. So I'll say yes, save the changes, and I'll say okay, fine, and then it'll say it made it backup. And so now you see we've got our test and set with pictures. So let's come out now and let's find a valve that has some images, and let's just make sure that this works. So I'm inside my owner right now, so I'm going to come into my view. I'm going to say limit data in view to entries with images, and I went from the 4800 or whatever that was, 4700, and we'll kick it down now to only the valve events that actually have images attached, and we'll be able to properly test and see the report work. So there's all of my events that have images. So I'm going to come into the images command, make sure it's got more than one image. That one only has one image. So I'm going to try and find one here. There's one that at least has two images. So I'll go ahead and I'll use that one with two. And whenever you're testing reports, it's always really, really good to make sure that you have more than one valve selected so that you can prove whether or not it's properly working. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multi-select a couple here. So I'm going to multi-select 3. So that's 115, 10, and 139. So I'm going to just make a quick note of that. 115, 10, and 139. So those are the 3 different valves with the C and K number. So I'm going to come into my reports. I'm going to come and choose my test and set with pictures. It automatically defaults to it being the 3. So I'm going to print the 3 reports or a report for each of those, I guess is the proper way to phrase it. And so I'm going to hope that there's some distinction in the images that are going to let me know for sure which one each one's for. So this is 115, so I know that the red is on 115. So I'll use that as the first one. And so for 10, I've got a nameplate, and I've also got, it looks like an install picture. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use both of those. That actually should be rotated before it's probably put on, or maybe that is the proper orientation, I'm not sure. And then for the last one, we've got one, so it's 139, and we've got a picture that's got some yellow in it. So I'll go ahead and I'll choose the picture. I'll say I want to use that one, and I'll go ahead and I'll say close. And so now we're going to take a look. I'll zoom out. You notice we had 3 valves. There's 2 pages for each, so I got 6 pages, which makes sense. So 115 had the red image, and so there's my red image. I'll click to my next one. 10 would have had the nameplate and the install image, and there they are. So I've got the nameplate and I've got the install image. And then finally the last one, 139, so that's 139, and it's got the yellow image. So I'll go ahead and I'll zoom in. Actually, let's go back to the one that's got the 2 pictures, and we'll look at the spacing. So I think the spacing probably worked out just fine there. Most people tend to take pictures that are at least relatively square, or perhaps they're a little bit over square, it's hard to say. But generally they fit somehow or other inside of this general layout. Obviously we could do a bit of tweaking here, and we could potentially pick up some screen real estate here. We could potentially move the final inspect around a little bit. We could probably, space this out a little bit better, but I think for the purpose of our example, I think that worked out just fine. So what we did is we went from a request, which was somebody had taken a hand-based report, printout and hand-drawn on the printout, the PDF that was dumped, and they wanted to add 2 photos. I knew it was based upon this test and set report, so I previewed it first. I then went into the editor, I made a copy of the report, and then I did the slight editing that I needed, ended up generating this one, and then when I finally tested it, I made sure I tested it on more than one valve, and I tested on those 3 valves. And the last thing that I could do now is I could do something like, I could choose here C and K number. I could use a field, and I could say C and K number, and what I can do now is it will end up printing all of the reports for those 3 valves to individual PDFs, and it will save it out to this default folder. It'll actually importantly put it on a clipboard for me, and from the clipboard I can just go ahead and I can paste it onto my local computer because I'm running VK remotely here. So that ends the session. Please tune in again. Bye.